SuperFlex Super Friends. What is up? Back on a SuperFlex Super Friday night. And meant to do one last week. Certainly had the material for it. Just didn't quite have the cooperation of the equipment. So it didn't end up happening. But we're back this week. And now we just have 2 weeks worth of absolute NFL insanity that we can talk about. So, as always, this is your show, your time to talk about whatever's on your mind. Because I'd say it basically every time we do one of these. I could just as easily just go make a podcast, down here in the basement all by myself. Nobody even knows what's going on, and talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. But I'm always curious what it is that you guys want to talk about, what you have going on in your leagues. Some of you have startups. Some of you are focused on rookies. Some of you are making trades. It's DLF's Dynasty Trades Month, by the way, hashtag Dynasty Trades Month. And I just wrote an article about trading quarterbacks, trading for and trading away quarterbacks in Superflex leagues. Hardest thing to do in all of Dynasty football, by the way. So we can certainly talk trades. They're probably not even happening nearly as frequently in our dynasty leagues as they are in the NFL right now. So apparently the NFL got the message as well that it's trades month, courtesy of dynastyleaguefootball.com. And so they've been doing just that. So yeah, tons of movement to talk about. I mean, since the last time we talked, Tom Brady came out of retirement. Carson Wentz, I believe, might have been traded. Deshaun Watson has a team. I don't know how much people really want to get into that one, but I mean, it's going to be a feature of our league. Deshaun Watson is going to be fantasy football relevant again. And, for better or for worse, I think it's probably worth talking about. What does that mean? Now Tyreek Hill gets traded, Devontae Adams traded. Man, there's so much going on. They're just keeping us stocked with content material here. So plenty to talk about. I've got some ideas of my own as well, but first I want to get into the chat. So Raynard Blenman is here, and he says, is the hype for the 2023 rookie class really real? So, I mean, it seems that way. And what I would say is it's kind of a combination of two things. Like, this 2022 class is legitimately weak, and then so it makes 2023 look that much better, I think. Otherwise, I would say that for the most part, it was going to be a pretty average draft class, pretty typical draft class. I think that, you've got some good quarterback prospects coming in, several of them, not just, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I think, it's several players deep at quarterback, and most of them would have been, there's probably 4 or 5 quarterbacks in that draft class who would have been the best quarterback in this year's class if they were able to, if they were draft eligible. So you've got that. I think that the way I understand it anyways, and let me preface this by saying I'm not a Devy guy. Like, I'm really just kind of regurgitating stuff that I've been told by people that I trust. But, it also sounds like running back is close to the same, to where, a lot of these guys coming in 2023 would have been in the conversation for running back 1 overall in 2022. I think Breece Hall still would have been there. I think he still would have been, probably top 5 range. But that's it. He's the only running back in 2022 that would have been a part of that conversation. And, Bijan Robinson, that's the guy I keep talking about. That's the whole reason to consider tanking a year in Dynasty, as much as you is as gross as it feels to just throw away a buy-in for a year and not compete, like it's very possible that the best thing for your roster could be to punt 2022, get that first overall pick, make it Bijan Robinson, and just win from now on, starting in 2023. So I mean, that's the best running back prospect that we've seen in a very, very long time. Arguably better than Saquon Barkley. And so, I mean, how far back do you have to go to find somebody who was, the caliber of prospect as Saquon Barkley? I don't know. So, yeah, the wide receiver class, I think, it sounds like it's still going to be maybe not quite as deep as this class, but still very strong and actually a little bit stronger at the top. Sounds like Keyshawn Butte is probably a better prospect than Treylon Burks. So like that's kind of I think that I think that it's legit. I think that there are some very good players coming in. I think this is an excellent question that's worth talking about, and worth focusing on. I do think that this is, it's a very good class coming in, but I think that the reason to bring this question up is to raise a little bit of awareness for the fact that it's not just that that class is going to be so much, so good just kind of on its own, like is this isolated thing. It's more that 2022 is going to be weak. We're going to get some kind of fringe starters. We're going to get a lot of bench material. We're going to get a lot of depth pieces. And, it makes 2023 look that much better. So I think that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up, Rainer. I think that's an important thing for us to, like I said, lend a little context to that. Alex Sorshi asks, what quarterback situation has improved the most this offseason, outside of obviously Deshaun Watson? Yeah, I mean, him just getting on the field that's a pretty big deal. But I mean, I would have to say, man, I feel like Tua is the easy answer, right? That one kind of makes the most sense. And I think that ultimately we have to stick with him. I think that in terms of protection, which is obviously very important to a quarterback, Russell Wilson gets a slight upgrade. Matt Ryan gets a massive upgrade, which comes at a perfect time for a 36, 37-year-old quarterback. I wouldn't say that either of them necessarily got much of an upgrade in the pass catching weapons, but just in terms of protection, Carson Wentz gets probably, I've said this before, I think that he's got the best number one wide receiver that he's ever had with Terry McLaurin. So, there's a lot of these guys who got some kind of upgrade. Derek Carr finally gets an alpha wide receiver. Marcus Mariota, I think you have to throw him in there, even though it's a no-win situation in Atlanta. I mean, it looks like he's going to be the starter. Maybe they draft somebody, but there's no real reason to. They should really be doing the same thing. They should be tanking, just like I'm saying to do it in dynasty leagues. If you're not built to win right now, which the Atlanta Falcons are not, tank in 2022 and get in on a draft class that's going to be particularly strong. I think they should be doing that, which means a full year of Marcus Mariota. He gets a full year to show what he can do. So it's a pretty big upgrade for him too. I don't know how you go with anybody but Tua, right? I mean, to add Tyreek Hill, bring back Mike Gesicki, of course. Bring in some running backs who fit the system, and above all else, to get Mike McDaniel as the head coach. It's kind of one of the young, innovative offensive minds in this league that is going to be able to scheme him into a position where he doesn't have to make, Pat Mahomes style of plays. That's not what they're going to ask Tua to do. He's going to be in position, and even more than that, his weapons are going to be in position to succeed just because of the way that they're schemed. So, man, I would say, like, for even before the trade for Tyreek Hill, I think just getting Mike McDaniel in there to engineer that offense, that was all it took for me to say it's Tua who gets the biggest upgrade. And that's even over the guys who, again, didn't even have starting jobs, and now they do. I still think, just based on what they've built in Miami around Tua, and the fact that they went all in on Tua. I mean, there's rumors that they were trying to bring in Tom Brady, but the bottom line is they've got Tua Tagovailoa, and they've built around him, and they've committed to him. And I think that puts him in an exponentially better situation than what he had last year when they were talking about trading for Deshaun Watson and, not giving him a whole lot to work with otherwise. Mr. says, should I worry about Moore with the Panthers not getting a veteran quarterback? So DJ Moore. I don't think that one's settled yet. I'll be honest with you. I still think that there's something coming. I kind of think, I've kind of had in my head all along that Jimmy Garoppolo makes a ton of sense for the Panthers. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a move still made. I mean, there's kind of no reason to necessarily rush it right at the moment. We're kind of running out of, there are more quarterbacks than jobs at the moment, between the prospects coming in, the remaining free agents, and the guys who are available in trades. So it's kind of the same situation as Cam Newton ran into, a couple years ago when he ended up in New England. It was like, they kind of had the luxury to shop around a little bit and wait for the price tag to come down, because it was like, where else is he going to go? There are no other jobs available to him. So, so I think that's kind of where the Panthers are at the moment. It's like, all right, we missed on Watson. We missed on, whoever else they might have gone after, Wentz, maybe. And, maybe they were going to be hoping to be in on, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. They missed on a few guys now. And, but, even then, there's still a little bit of a win there, because now that's one more job that you don't have to compete with. We're getting to a point here where the Carolina Panthers are going to be the only ones still looking for a quarterback, and they're going to have their pick of a bunch of different guys that they could potentially go after. So, yeah, I think it's too early. But what I would also say is, one thing that we've kind of been noticing over the last several years is that good wide receivers, the elite level wide receivers, it kind of doesn't matter who their quarterback is. A lot of them are able to produce regardless of who the quarterback is. And that's the type of guys that we want at wide receiver. If they're hurt by the fact that Sam Darnold is the quarterback, because DJ Moore was still, 1,400 yards, and there's some touchdown regression coming again, but his efficiency numbers were just fine. And that was with Sam Darnold, with Cam Newton, with, Phillip Walker coming in. So he was just fine with that group. I don't think that, I think he's mostly quarterback proof. I think that there are some guys who could ruin him, but I don't think those guys are in consideration. So, yeah, I think DJ Moore is going to be just fine. He hasn't moved in my rankings yet. And, kind of regardless who the quarterback is, he's going to be fine. But I do think that there's somebody still coming. AJ McMahon is here. Yeah, thanks for the show, John. Thanks for being here, AJ. Thank you all for joining and bringing some questions, bringing some energy on this SuperFlex Super Friday night. It's going to be a fun one, man. I can tell already. Timothy says Bijan is talented, but he isn't Saquon. Yeah, I, I, I love Saquon, man. I love him this year. I think Bijan Robinson is a better player, but um, I mean, that's where we're at. What I will say is, even if I was to concede that point, we're still talking about, we're comparing him to easily the best prospect of the last however many, 10 years maybe. Seriously, when's the last time that we saw beyond Saquon? When's the last time that we've seen a prospect like that come into the league? So every time you get one of those guys, it's exciting, and it's you just know that there's an opportunity to build a dynasty roster around that guy, which is saying a lot because the running back position is just not a foundational one for dynasty, generally speaking. Joe says, let's see, Butte and his team are not currently on the same page. He's undergoing a second surgery on his ankle. Keep an eye on that. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. That's something to monitor for sure, because we need that guy to be fully healthy. And it's to me, like I don't really have much interest in rookie wide receivers. I still don't. I feel like, there's a better opportunity with veteran wide receivers generally. I think you can get a veteran wide receiver cheaper than most rookie wide receivers. And I think we're kind of seeing it play out again this year. We're seeing Treylon Burks and to a lesser extent Garrett Wilson going ahead of established veteran wide receivers who, have spent a significant amount of time in their NFL offense catching passes from this one quarterback. And, like, for instance, I mean, Brandon Ayuk is significantly cheaper than Treylon Burks. Now, I'm not saying Brandon Ayuk is better than Treylon Burks. He's probably not. But the fact that you get him, 5 rounds later, and all of those players that you pick along the way in a startup, and then, kind of the same basic principle in a trade package, but you're still going to get very similar scoring from Brandon Ayuk that you would get from Treylon Burks, kind of regardless of where he ends up. And then you get whatever else, kind of came along as part of that trade package, or those extra 5 picks that you made in between the time when Treylon Burks and the time when Brandon Ayuk were drafted. So, I don't draft rookie wide receivers. I just think it's just suboptimal to do it. But we kind of rely on people. I rely on people still doing it. Like this year, I'm going to rely on people passing on Kenneth Walker, passing on Isaiah Spiller, passing on Matt Corral, and taking Treylon Burks, taking Garrett Wilson, taking Drake London, and letting those guys, fall to me later in the draft so that I'm getting, more usable players in year one, most likely at a discount. And, and then I'm still finding similar production at wide receiver elsewhere. So, we still need that. We need Kayshon Boutte, even though he's not going to be somebody that I'm going to recommend drafting. We need him healthy coming into the 2023 rookie class, so that he can be that meat shield, that buffer for us to get our running backs and get our quarterbacks while people are taking wide receivers because, that one time Jamar Chase did the Jamar Chase things. Frolicking Heifer asks, with Hill coming in, Sorry, with Hill coming in and Tua and Waddle's value goes up even more. Yeah, I think so too. I think the only guy who lost value in that deal was Tyreek Hill himself. Like, it's just a downgraded quarterback. It just is, And now he's got to share that offense. He's got to share some targets with Jalen Waddle, who is younger, just as fast, probably, at least close, and of just a very similar player. Where it used to be Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who had like contrasting but complementary roles for the Chiefs. Now you've got those two guys on the outside doing the exact same thing. So it's all just a matter of whose number gets called this time, and it's going to get divided up pretty evenly. So yeah, I think it's great for Tua. I still think it's great for Waddle. I think it helps a lot for Waddle. I think it draws some tough coverage away from him. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, Heifer. I think, like I said, the only guy who takes a hit at all for me is Tyreek Hill. Dylan Vergara. Someday I'm gonna learn how to say your last name, Dylan. You're gonna have to tell me so I can just effortlessly fly through it and get right into to what you're saying, what you're asking. Someday we're gonna get there, my friend. Hey, Superflex, dude. Teron Armstead for Tua is huge. I'm still worried about Tua long term, though. Are you? No, not really. I mean, I like I said, there's the rumors about Tom Brady. Last year, the rumors were Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, I think that we do have to keep in the back of our minds a little bit that the Dolphins have a pretty short leash on Tua. Not to a point where they're going to bench him in season. I mean, you're not going to bench Tua for Teddy Bridgewater, right? That's not happening. But if they've got to win some games. They've spent some money. They've traded some heavy draft capital. They've built this thing up, and it's time to win. It's time to get to the playoffs. It's time to compete for that division. And on the off chance that doesn't happen, they might start to look a different direction. So there's some concern there. I just think that Mike McDaniel is the type of coach, and he runs a type of system that is going to make Tua look good, and it's going to simplify things. It's going to kind of just open the field up from Tua's perspective. Like, everything's just going to kind of slow down and just kind of fall into place for him a little bit. It just kind of makes more sense when you have the right type of scheme. And I think that they're gonna play more into Tua's strengths. By the way, the idea that Tyreek Hill comes in here to be a downfield threat. I don't buy that. I don't think that that's why you do it. I think that, you've loaded up on speed and you've loaded up on guys who can catch the ball and, and then make things happen with the ball in their hands. This is an offense built for yak. And so they get to keep everything kind of short, close in and lots of timing patterns, lots of, quick slants and bubble screens and stuff like that. They're going to run the ball a lot. I hate to say it for those who are hoping to see this explosive pass offense. On one hand, it feels like lazy analysis to say this is going to be a continuation of the Kyle Shanahan offense. But, man, this is going to be a continuation of the Kyle Shanahan offense. It just is. They signed a fullback. That was kind of all you needed to know, I think. It's one of 3 teams in the NFL that really uses a fullback. Most teams just throw out a tight end or a defensive tackle or something. Offensive guard, whatever. just, on those short yardage, push the pile type of, power run situations. Yeah, just send out your 370 pound nose tackle and let him clear the way. But they're so committed to it that they actually went out and got an honest to God fullback because they plan on pounding the ball. So it's not great news for us fantasy wise. I still think there's plenty of meat on the bone for the primary guys, for Hill, for Waddle, for Gesicki. And then for the running backs, there's enough in the passing game for them as well. But it's not going to be a Cincinnati Bengals high flying passing offense. I think they really are planning to run the ball quite a bit. It's bad news for us for fantasy purposes, but it's great news for Tua because it just it puts him in positions where, he's throwing on, second and short. He gets to run a play action and take some shots. And then, he's in high percentage situations and it's a high percentage offense. So I think he's going to be just fine. And we do have to keep that in the back of our minds. It's a possibility that they, that they're looking elsewhere for somebody who, I don't know, with a little bit better resume, I suppose. I don't even know necessarily what you're getting by giving up on Tua now even for Tom Brady, really. I don't know that would have been a move worth making. I think they kind of dodged a bullet, if I'm being honest with you with that one. So, but we do have to keep in mind that they're they're not quite as locked in on Tua as they say, but the fact that it hasn't been working and there's kind of a recommitment to Tua. I think he's going to be have every opportunity to succeed. Russ Williams asks, 12-team PPR Superflex, got a trade of Herbert, Guyton. So it looks like it's Justin Herbert and Jalen Guyton for Lamar Jackson, TJ Hawkinson, Michael Gallup. I don't know what I should do. So let's see. Man, to me, I would take side B. I hope that's the side that's being offered to you. I've got Justin Herbert ranked as my second quarterback in Dynasty. He's only behind Pat Mahomes. So I even have him ahead of Josh Allen. And the main reason for that just being that I feel like Josh Allen is going to be in a little bit more conservative offense than Justin Herbert is. So, yeah, and it's splitting hairs. I've got them in a tier together. Lamar Jackson is in the next tier down, but to me, that means, there's very little scoring difference between those two. I think that Herbert is going to be a little bit more long-term, also kind of lazy analysis, but it's just, I am nervous about what happens when Lamar Jackson has to stop running, stand in the pocket and deliver, and the threat of running isn't even there anymore. But in the meantime, we do get that rushing. We get the best rushing quarterback in the league and one of the best all time. And, he ends up making up the difference pretty easily in the passing game between himself and Justin Herbert. So I think that you get very similar scoring at the quarterback position. And then you're really from there, you're talking about getting Hawkinson and Michael Gallup for Guyton, who's never gonna start for you. He's just kind of a roster clogger, I think. So for most people. So yeah, to me, that's pretty easily the Lamar side. Yeah, I Yeah. That's kind of the bottom line. The scoring between those 2 quarterbacks, like that though, that's the argument that people love to make is, the reason to not go quarterback early in startups. The reason to not prioritize quarterbacks is because of value over replacement. The fact that they all score so similarly, which is true. That part's true. It doesn't take into account the fact that all of them, what we're essentially saying is that all of them score better than every other player at every other position. You know, Derek Carr still is going to score better than Jonathan Taylor in most seasons. It just is. But yeah, I mean, just when we're talking about going from quarterback to quarterback, it usually there, a lot of times you're going to see teams, team managers kind of trying to prioritize those elite quarterbacks, trying to give themselves an edge in quarterback scoring. And anytime they try and do that, I'm happy to downgrade if it means I'm upgrading at another position because they're not getting the scoring, the scoring upgrade, the scoring advantage that they think they're getting. Like it's just kind of a fallacy to think that, Justin Herbert is going to score TJ Hawkinson and Michael Gallup more than Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Like there's almost no possibility of that happening. Ronnie Rhodes asks, have you seen any film on Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech? He's going to be the best back coming out of the 2023 class. Stud. Yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot of tape. I'm not a tape grinder necessarily. I do a little bit of that. But I usually wait until that class is coming. But I've seen some Jahmyr Gibbs, and man, I like back to that original question that we had right at the very top. Is the 2023 class really that good? As good as advertised? And yeah, I mean, it's not just Bijan Robinson. It's not just Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. It's a deep class. I think that there's a good chance that like this is where we've kind of been all over the place on trying to gauge values, right? We actually did a SuperFlex SuperFriday bit on looking at ADP that included both 2022 picks and then random 2023 picks. And it was basically, would you rather have this group of veterans, this bucket of veterans, or would you rather have rookie pick in 2022 1.02? Or would you rather have, a random 2023 pick that you have no idea where it's going to land? And for a lot of people, they're feeling like, you know what, I would certainly rather have top 2, top 3, top 5 even in 2022. And I would probably rather have 106, 107, 108, maybe even 109 than any rookie pick in 2023, any random first round pick in 2023. And I just disagree. I think rookie pick 1.01 in 2022 is going to be better than, a third to a half of the 2023 first round. I think that 1.02 is going to be better than roughly a third of the 2023 first round. That's about it, man. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson is a 2023 first. If he happened to, if he didn't come out this year and he was available in 2023, I think he'd be a late 2023 first, just based on what I know of that draft class. And I think Treylon Burks, same thing. We talked about it last time. To me, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson belong in the same tier, just kind of right, just back to back. But there's so many players at premium positions, quarterback and running back specifically, coming in 2023 that it almost doesn't matter what picks you have. I really want 101 because I want Bijan Robinson. I'd like to have my quarterback set so that even if I end up with 101 and 102, now I'm taking Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs and putting those with my young quarterbacks and some young wide receivers. Like, that's the ideal situation. But like, even if that doesn't happen, even if I don't end up with 101, I'm still fine with that 2023 first round pick wherever it lands, because there are players like Jahmyr Gibbs. There are players like Tank Bigsby. There's some massive talent coming in at both quarterback and running back that makes that entire first round almost, man, I would make the argument that that entire first round is more valuable than all but 2 or 3 picks here in 2022. I know it's hot takey, but man, this is a weak class, and 2023 really is. It's deep with better players. It just is. And yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is another great example of that. I still think Bijan Robinson is easily the best running back in that group, but I mean, Gibbs is going to be right there. It's not going to be a runaway for Bijan Robinson. There are several guys. In fact, I can't even remember some of the other names. I'll have to look that up. Colin asks, 10 teams, SuperFlex, PPR. Team A is Deontay Johnson. Team B gives up 202 and a 2024 first. Which side you like? It's pretty easily Deontay Johnson for me, Colin. 202, I mean, you get a wide receiver to replace Deontay, but man, like at that point, we're probably into a new tier. Like, you probably miss out on Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. You also miss out on, the whoever gets the best draft capital and the best landing spots among guys like Chris Olave, George Pickens, Jameson Williams. So, you're kind of just going to be left with probably the third or fourth best wide receiver out of the second tier. So like the 7th best wide receiver. And it's not quite that bad, is it, in a 10 team? It's more like you're getting like the wide receiver 5, most likely, to try and replace Deontay Johnson. And then the other thing is that 2024 first, I've kind of been, I've backed off of this recently just because of the vast difference between 2022 and 2023. But in the past, and I go right back to this when we start talking about 2024. So in the past, my feeling on it has always been this year's second round is worth next year's first round because of the time that you have to wait. You have to wait to see where that pick is going to land. You have to wait for the value to mature. And you have to wait and see what that class is even going to look like. So generally speaking, the amount of time that you have to wait before you get all, the full information on that pick devalues it by a full round, essentially. So, if I was, let's just fast forward a year and say I'm on the clock at, in 2023 at pick 205, I would expect to be able to trade that pick for a 2024 first round pick. Like, that's kind of the difference in value. Now, you're not always going to see a trade like that actually happen, but that's just kind of a way to generically value future picks. And so for 2024, I mean, we're 2 years away. Like, that's basically worth like a late second round pick here in 2022, just because of how long you have to wait. And I mean, to me, it's, Deontay Johnson should probably be worth multiple first round picks this year. And or I mean, even if it was 2023, I still would expect multiple first round picks. like a 2022 first and a 2023 first is kind of what it would take for me to give up Deontay Johnson at this point. And yeah, so that 2024 first just comes way, way short on value. So yeah, if you've got Deontay, I would stick with him, man. It's kind of uh, they need to come a lot stronger than that to get him. Ryan May asks, what's Mike Evans worth in 12-team Superflex start 11? Tried getting a 2023 first off a couple people, but got turned down. Yeah, that's surprising for me. And honestly, I don't think that I would accept anything less. Trying to decide. I mean, maybe because like I said, I mean, I would trade almost any 2022 first round pick. Outside of the top 2, maybe top 3 or 4, I would trade I would trade out completely for a 2023 first, because I think you have to wait a year, but you're going to get a much better player. So, maybe there's maybe a later, like mid-late first round pick in 2022, somewhere around 107. The problem is most people don't value draft picks that same way. Most people aren't going to say a 2023 first is worth more than 2022's, 106, 107. So, yeah, man, I think I would dig in my heels if you can, though. Like that should be his value. He gets undervalued just constantly. He's one of the most consistent wide receivers this league has ever seen. At least for fantasy purposes. I don't know. I don't know why it's down so much, but I mean, he gets Brady back, gets Godwin back. This is a fully functioning offense, just like it's been the last couple years when he's been in the wide receiver one, low end wide receiver one range. I know he's getting older. I know that it's kind of that's the cliff. That's the point where we like to move off of wide receivers, but yeah, I'm with you, man. I would expect a 2023 first and or a 2022 first. I would expect a first round pick in return, and if I didn't get it, I would just stick with him. Like his value is going to get there at some point, Like even if you're trying to tank, even if you're trying to rebuild, however you want to say it, if you're trying to go into kind of a productive struggle, or even if you're just trying to rebuild a contender into a younger contender right now, Mike Evans is still, his value is going to hit that point at some point. Like at some point, he's going to be worth that to somebody who is kind of in a win now window. We're going to get into the season and they're going to notice that, like, this is a team that can go win the championship, but I'm kind of that, that second wide receiver away. And all of a sudden Mike Evans gets there because it's just kind of like, you know what? I'm willing to mortgage the future to go get my championship. If he's the missing piece, I'm going to do that. So, I think, if you're not getting that right now, you're going to get that eventually. So I would hold out. To me, that should be his value. There's AJ again, and he says, John, would you please share some insights from your recent DLF article on QBX? Yeah, it was so I kind of started off with, and I don't want to give too much away because the company stooge that I am, they would prefer that you go to DLF since you're already a subscriber, of course we all are. You're going to go to DLF and read the article. But yeah, it was like I kind of started off with a little bit of a sales pitch for QBX, very watered down version of quarterback extreme. And the fact that I like to end up with 5 quarterbacks in in the startup, the way to get to 5 starting NFL quarterbacks is really to start early. You know, um, the reason I like to do it is the ability to stream those quarterbacks within my roster. When it's time to set a lineup, I like being able to make a decision. I don't want to just be stuck with Josh Allen if he's in a bad matchup. If he's going up against the New England Patriots and they've been shutting him down pretty consistently, I don't want to have to just sit there and take that when, I really could just pivot to somebody else, a lesser quarterback in a much, much better matchup. I would rather be able to pivot to, Ryan Tannehill, going against Houston, for instance. I would rather be able to do that. It raises my scoring ceiling. But the part that I hate to admit, but I fully recognize, fully acknowledge, is that the real selling point on QBX. This is a part that actually excites people. People aren't excited about streaming quarterbacks within their rosters. I get it. Like, it sounds boring, especially here in March when we're this far away from setting lineups. Man, that feels boring, right? That feels just like, why are we even talking about this? Like, you're telling me that I can get 5 extra points if I bench Josh Allen and start Ryan Tannehill. So boring. I get it. Here's what's exciting about Quarterback Extreme. If you have 5 quarterbacks, that essentially leaves about half of your league in a 12-team league. Half of them are going to have 3 quarterbacks, meaning if one of them is on bye and one of them is injured, they're down to 1 quarterback for that week. They can't compete with a team that has 2 quarterbacks, one at quarterback and one at SuperFlex. They can't compete for that week. I mean, they can, but it's going to take a monstrous effort from those non-quarterback positions, and then half of the league is going to be left with 2 quarterbacks, which means on bye weeks, they're screwed. They have no way, you have no way of competing against a team that has 2 quarterbacks. And if one of their quarterbacks is injured and the other is on bye, I mean, they can't even submit a legal lineup, much less win the week. So, there's and then, forget about the ability to trade a quarterback. If you only have 2, how on earth are you ever going to be able to trade one of those 2 without getting one in return? You're just putting yourself in the worst position possible. Nobody's willing to do that. Even if you have 3, it's really hard to trade one away and know that if I don't get a quarterback in return, if I trade this guy away and I don't get one in return, I'm putting myself in that exact same situation. So, where like it's a house of cards at that point. All it takes is a bye week. All it takes is an injury. All it takes is a benching or a retirement to turn on the fan, and the whole thing just goes nuts, So to me, those teams with 2 or 3 quarterbacks, they're not sellers. They're not going to be able to trade away a quarterback without getting one in return. There's one team that can do it. There's one team that can trade away a quarterback and not expect one in return. And it's the team that has 5. Like, you're still going to be okay. It's still not as advantageous to have 4 as to have 5, but you're able to do it, and therefore, like, you get to set the price at that point. You get to say what this player is worth, and it's not what he's worth to you. It's what he should have been worth to that other team when they decided to take, this running back instead of taking a 4th quarterback. So, it gives you just a ridiculous amount of trade leverage, and you can expect an enormous return in a trade for a quarterback. if you do go QBX. So like I said, that's the part that always excites people. And I get it. I mean, when I go into the SuperFlex theorem, and saying if you're gonna, if the quarterback was taken within 2 rounds of the non-quarterback, the quarterback, non-quarterback, then you should be able to trade that quarterback for that player who went 2 rounds earlier, straight up. Like that's kind of what the value does outside of the startup when the market has been set. People love that part. And I get it, it is fun to think about cashing in like that, but to me, I still want to take 5 into the season, but man, it's nice to be able um, to have that, have the ability to capitalize on that trade leverage that you have. Jacob Smith says, "What's your oldest Dynasty league? What year did it start?" That's a good question. I think my oldest at this point started in 2016, I believe. Yeah, I started in 2014 with one Dynasty league as one quarterback. I hadn't even heard of SuperFlex yet. Odell Beckham Jr. going into his second year, and everybody was like, "Oh man, like to have that guy just on your team in perpetuity." That's going to be so awesome. But that league had a kill switch in it. It was an Empire league, but it didn't just have the Empire pot. It also was, when somebody wins that Empire pot, then the league resets. So that league died. Somebody won it back to back after like 3-4 years, something like that. So I'm down that one, and so yeah, I believe my oldest started in 2016. And it was an auction. SuperFlex, tight end premium. I overvalued tight ends, and I spent a quarter of my budget on Andrew Luck. Man, that's confusing. Like, why Drew Lock is so annoying. He even has a similar name to one of the all-time great quarterback prospects, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game with, on a shortened career. Drew Lock has almost the same name, and like always just kind of sneak. Like when I'm talking about Andrew Luck, the great, former Stanford and Indianapolis Colts quarterback, I accidentally talk about Drew Lock. He does not belong in the same sentence as Andrew Luck. So unfair. So annoying. Yeah, so I spent a quarter of my budget on freaking Andrew Luck. And that pretty much doomed me. I did a second chance a couple years ago, and have been just kind of slowly ruining that team as I go too. But first of all, QBX had not been invented yet. I wish I had known anything that I know now as far as, quarterback values. It also has a quarterback max, though. It's got a positional limit of 3 quarterbacks, which now I don't like that because it completely neutralizes my strategies. But I'm hanging in there. I'm coming back for yet another season, and I've got good quarterbacks. I've got Josh Allen, Tua, and Justin Fields. Even though I just had Ben Roethlisberger retire, I had Justin Fields on taxi. So my quarterbacks are young and they're strong, and I like my wide receivers, Hollywood Brown and Chase Claypool and Rondale Moore. I've got a couple others I can't even remember. So like it's a good looking team right now, but I've never had running backs on that team. Like they've always been just complete garbage. So yeah, at this point, the only thing keeping me in that thing is nostalgia. it's kind of like staying friends with the guy that you met in kindergarten, even though he just turns into a completely different person. Like he's the, the drug dealing meth head. And, you know, here I am, just kind of the upright citizen that you see before you today. But we're still friends because we've always been friends. Like that's kind of why I'm still in that league, if we're being honest. Meat Shield. Yeah. I don't even remember who I called the Meat Shield, but yeah, there's meat shields out there. Fullbacks, probably. Yeah. Uh, Joe says a rookie draft ideally should not be assumed to impact one's starting lineup. Take it as a bonus if it happens, in my opinion. Man, it's a good point. And then Joe also says, I think Miami's RPO was to hide that offensive line as much as possible. Its evolution will be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that could be a good point too. It's just the focus on the running game just kind of makes me wonder. But back to the rookie draft, like I think that's a really good point that I don't think you're ever going to be able to sell anybody, present company excluded. You're not going to be able to sell anybody else on that idea. But like that really should be kind of the approach, like we really should be trying to build this roster just completely agnostic of the rookie draft and, get it to a point where whatever you get out of the rookies, it's just bonus. Like you said, just take it as a bonus if it happens. We should be able to go best player available. We should be able to target the players that, at the premium positions, call them the best player available. We should be able to just load up on running backs. Like that should be what we're doing in the rookie draft. And some of them are most of them are going to do something for you at some point. Like, Chuba Hubbard was going to get onto the field and be fantasy viable at some point, somewhere along the line. It was going to happen, so, we really should be able to just say, all right, like I'm just taking this guy not to be a starter. I don't need a starter. I've got my starter set. The rookie draft is just to kind of detail this thing. I like that. I like that a lot. But like I said, most of this industry, particularly the fantasy football Twitter, Dynasty football Twitter, is going to freaking hate that, Joe. I'm sorry to tell you. But this is a safe place for all things anti-rookie. Back to Dylan. He says, where do you have Javonte Williams in your running back rankings now? And how much of a downgrade would he get if Melvin Gordon resigns? So I moved him up a little bit. So when I first did my rankings, I accidentally put Javonte Williams way too high and was hyper sensitive to it because of the fact that I'm a Denver Broncos fan. And I just imagined you guys going to my rankings at dynastyleaguefootball.com and seeing Javonte Williams as the running back 4 or 5 overall, whatever it was, something like that. And then, guys like Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson way down at like running back 10, 11, stuff like that. And just being like, oh, like, how am I supposed to use it? Like, this is just Broncos fan just puking orange and blue all over the page and calling it his rankings. Like, so I moved him way down. And then they get Russell Wilson. And to me, the guy who benefits the most from Russell Wilson being the quarterback of the Denver Broncos is Javonte Williams. Talked about it last time. Sustained drives, more plays run, more trips into the red zone, more positive game scripts created by a well-rested defense. Everything just works in Javonte Williams' favor. But I'm still slowly moving him up just to like figure out like I'll move him up space. I'll move him up, past one running back and say, all right, let's see if I get away with this or if I get called out or not. If I get away with this and nobody's like, oh, the Broncos fan, red flag, Broncos fan. If nobody says that, then I'll try and move him up one more. I'm just gonna keep sneaking him up in my rankings until somebody just says, all right, this is going too far. This is just homerism now. But until then, yeah, I mean, he's kind of in the I want to say he's like 5th tier overall, not running backs, but overall, which is like third tier of running backs, somewhere around running back 8 or 9. And I Melvin Gordon wouldn't change that for me. I don't think again, the whole deal is, these carries aren't going to be as much of a premium as they were in 2021 because you're going to have more sustained drives. So even with Melvin Gordon taking a substantial amount of that volume away from Javonte Williams, there's still just more volume just in general to go around. There's more volume available now than what Javonte Williams loses. So like his opportunities go up regardless. And it doesn't matter who is there to be the backup. Even if it's not Melvin Gordon, they're going to use somebody else. They're going to involve somebody. I'm going to be back to talking about Mike Boone as one of my favorite sleepers. And that's going to be another, Broncos homer eye roll, but there's going to be somebody else who's involved. And to me, Mike Boone is honestly at this moment, at this point in their careers, a better running back than Melvin Gordon anyways. So they're going to use somebody. He's going to take Javonte Williams off the field, but it's just not going to matter. Javonte Williams is still going to get more opportunities, more volume than he had last year. And he's going to be able to do more with it in a more dynamic offense. Steven Adona says, for managers that want to try QBX, but didn't draft their teams with that strategy. I love this question already. I know where this is going and I love it. How do you recommend making that adjustment? The rookie draft, trades, a combination of the two? Yeah, combination of the two. So, a big thing that people kind of run into is the idea that QBX, because it does start in the first round, and in fact, we're taking 3 in the first 4 rounds. That's true QBX, is to start early so that you can go start often. I talk about this every week, so there's going to be some people who just kind of tune this out, and that's totally fine. But basically, like when if you're at 101 in your startup, and I'm saying take Pat Mahomes, people just kind of assume that the reason for that is, I mean, it's Pat freaking Mahomes. It's the elite of the elite. It's the number 1 quarterback. Of course, you're taking him. That's not a QBX principle. And people are just going to kind of assume, oh, so QBX is about getting as many top end quarterbacks as you can get. And that's not it at all. The only reason that I say Pat Mahomes, well, and Pat Mahomes is a slightly different deal, by the way. So we're going to use a different example and say, at 104, I'm still going to tell you to take, Dak Prescott or Joe Burrow. Take one of those guys, Lamar Jackson. I'm still saying take one of those guys. And it's not because they're just so much better than the quarterbacks that are going to be there for you in the second round, because that doesn't matter. It's just the fact that, generally speaking, the quarterbacks are going to dry up in your startup in the first 10 rounds. By the 10th round, 11th round, something like that, you're not going to have any starting quarterbacks left. You're going to have some lotto ticket type guys. Tyler Huntley will probably be there. I love Tyler Huntley. I think he's going to get a starting job at some point. But we don't count him as a quarterback because he's not going to be in your quarterback rotation in season. So in order to get 5 guys who are going to be startable for you every single week that they're, as long as they're healthy and not on a bye, you really kind of want to start in the first round so that you give yourself the full 10-round runway to get those 5 guys and not have to do it all at once while ignoring the other positions. Because as much as we would love to take, Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson in the middle of the first round and give ourselves at least a perceived advantage at wide receiver, or take Jonathan Taylor late in the first round and give ourselves that advantage at running back. As much as we would love to do that, it's so much easier to reach past Jonathan Taylor for, Russell Wilson than it is to reach past, every time I try and do this, every time I try and come up with some of these examples, I totally forget some names. Hollywood Brown. It's so much harder to reach past Hollywood Brown in the 7th, 8th round, wherever he makes it to, for, Jameis Winston, Jimmy Garoppolo, assuming he lands a starting job, Matt Ryan, because you have to take a quarterback now. You have to go 5 straight quarterbacks from round 6 through 10 in order to get your full 5. You're making much bigger reaches. It feels so much easier to just go ahead and take them in the first round and take them early, get it out of the way. And then that frees you up to, take advantage of the value at wide receiver and running back and even tight end, while everybody else is scrambling to fix their quarterbacks because they waited too long. That's the reason to do it. It's not that we need elite guys. In fact, it's the absolute opposite. To me, what you want to do is draft the elite guys and then tier down from them. Like trade away, trade Pat Mahomes for Tua plus, like you're going to get a high-end starter at a non-quarterback position along with Tua. And then you're going to be able to, again, Pat Mahomes is a wrong example. Back to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson for Tua plus another starter. And you're going to get very similar scoring from Tua as Lamar Jackson. And even more than that, Tua fits into a rotation just as well as anybody else. So we just want 5 guys who are going to keep their jobs. Honestly, that's all we're after. And then from there, you just play matchups. You just say whoever the 2 quarterbacks in the best matchups this week, that's who I'm starting. And most of the time you're going to get that right. And it kind of doesn't matter how elite they are, how elite those quarterbacks are, So like start with that. Start with the fact that we don't need elite quarterbacks, and it makes it so much easier to trade in from there. Obviously you can use a rookie draft. This rookie draft, unfortunately, is not going to be a real good one for that. I think you need Malik Willis. And, I think that Kenny Pickett has a chance to start somewhere. Sam Howell and Matt Corral have outside shots at being NFL starters. It's not looking good, folks, for these rookie quarterbacks. And I don't even think Malik Willis is going to be that good, but I think he's going to be a starter. So whatever, it's fine. But yeah, in a normal year, you can use a rookie draft to kind of build it back up. But more than anything, trade in at the bottom level. Trade for Jameis Winston, trade for Matt Ryan, and you can always upgrade those guys. It's a lot easier to trade for a quarterback if you're going to send a quarterback. So, you can move up. It's going to hurt a little still, but you can move up from Matt Ryan to, one of my favorites, Zach Wilson. And all of a sudden you've got a young quarterback. It's still not easy, but you can get there. But start with those, those cheap guys who look like they're going to be NFL starters like for a year. Jared Goff is a great starting point. Jimmy Garoppolo again, like I said, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, I think at this point is probably cheap enough. You can just load up on a bunch of guys like that. Drew Lock, even as much as the guy annoys me, right at the moment, he's an NFL starter. So, trade for him and then upgrade him later. But yeah, that's kind of the best way to get into QBX when you're not already there, is to start at the bottom of the totem pole of the the quarterback hierarchy. Make sure they're starters, or at least likely starters. Guys who are who look like Marcus Mariota. There's another great one. Looks like he's going to be a starter for at least a year. Start with him. You can probably get him for like a second round rookie pick, which is crazy because you're not going to be able to get a rookie quarterback with a second round pick who has much of a path to start. At least it's not likely, So the fact that you can get an actual NFL starter in Marcus Mariota by simply giving up, a pick somewhere around like 203, 204 in the rookie draft, when all the rookies are the rookie quarterbacks are going to have dried up already. That's kind of the cheap, easy way to do it. Get your 5 quarterbacks. And then from there, again, I mean, you've got the opportunity to trade away quarterbacks without getting them in return, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to move around. First of all, within the entire player pool, and then ultimately upgrade those quarterbacks. So, but yeah, just start with the cheap guys. Freak Stomp 49er traded away Kamara for Kareem Hunt and a 2023 first. Yeah, I think we talked about that one last time. And to me, it was Kareem Hunt. It was it was a 2023 first straight up. I would take the 2023 first straight up for Kamara, and then Kareem Hunt for free. Yeah, freaking love that. Love that move. Stephanie and Caleb. Hey, John, 10-team SuperFlex tight end premium. Who do you like more, Michael Pittman or Elijah Moore? What would you add to Pittman to get Elijah Moore? It's like you already knew what I was going to say. You already knew that I like Elijah Moore better than Michael Pittman. But I do think they're close. I like that Elijah Moore is tied to the better quarterback, younger quarterback, with a more lively arm. So I also think they're going to draft someone. I think they're going to draft one, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. I think they're going to be in play for one of those picks. And I think that it's going to devalue Elijah Moore when it happens, and it shouldn't. So the first thing I would say is consider waiting until the NFL draft. See what happens in the NFL draft. Because Michael Pittman's going to come out of that as the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis. Elijah Moore, at least in public opinion, is probably not going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Jets after the NFL draft. And it's going to lower his price. But if you do want to do it right now, I mean, I don't think it should take a lot to move from one to the other. And in fact, if you have a little bit of a wide receiver surplus, one thing you could consider doing is packaging another wide receiver and make it feel a little bit like a little bit of an overpay, but send Michael Pittman plus another wide receiver for Elijah Moore. You get back Elijah Moore and you get back an empty roster spot that can be used for a running back. And to me, you win that twice. If you're right at where you need to be at wide receiver, or at least where you want to be at wide receiver, I think, I think that in order to get a move like that off the ground, it probably is going to take like a mid-second round pick at the minimum. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, what inspires me to turn this wide receiver that's very similar into this, like to turn him into this wide receiver when they're very similar. Like there's kind of no reason to really change from one to the other. just kind of putting myself in the shoes of the person with Elijah Moore, and I'm just kind of like, what would it take to inspire me to make that move? And I think it probably takes a like a mid second round pick at the minimum. But that, like I said, to me that's too expensive, and so I would wait and see what happens in the NFL draft. I think you'll get a discount on Elijah Moore after that. Ryan May says 12 team Superflex start 11: Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Mark Andrews, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Damian Harris, Carson Wentz, Kendrick Bourne are my notable players. Also have 212, 303, 308, and all 2023 picks with 2 extra seconds. Any moves I could or should do? I would so it looks like you could probably use some work at running back primarily. And you're going to get some running back depth with those rookie picks. I mean, none of these guys necessarily. What I would say is, if I think Mike Evans probably is a sell for you. Damian Harris probably is too. And Carson Wentz might be as well. I'm just kind of like, this roster feels like it's kind of headed for the middle, with Carson Wentz holding down Superflex, and without a whole lot of power at running back, it's going to be hard for you to make a real push for the championship as currently constructed. I think you could tear down from Josh Allen and try to start adding some running backs. Like, this is to avoid a rebuild. I think that you could tear down from Josh Allen. I think you could actually tear down from Justin Jefferson. It's kind of one of the rare cases where you can, where a wide receiver has enough value that you could consider tearing down. So, Justin Jefferson for, trying to think of kind of a mid-level guy, maybe Chris Godwin, something like that. And I think you probably get a startable running back as a sweetener in that deal. So, yeah, that's kind of one name that comes to mind, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you could either do that to try and shore up running back, or you could start stripping this down, call it a productive struggle season. Try and get a little younger at a couple positions, and that's why I say, Evans, Lockett, Harris, Wentz. Those are all guys that I would move on from if you're not going to try and compete in 2022. And try and load up on 2023 first round picks. I think you'll probably get some usable players in the second round too, but I'd focus on first round picks. And this team feels like it's kind of right dead center. You could go either way just as easily. You could turn this into a contender pretty easily. And like I said, I think the path to doing that is tearing down from Josh Allen and Justin Jefferson and probably Mark Andrews. Or you could, strip it down a little bit and go productive struggle, tank the season, punt the season, and then get your running backs in 2023. Stephanie and Caleb ask 10-team Superflex tight end premium. I have Dak, Watson, Russell Wilson, and Trey Lance. Looking to downgrade Wilson. What should I look to get in return? Picks players to go after. If you're just going to tear down, if you're going to go from Russell Wilson to his brother Zach, for instance, this is one of my favorites. I love Zach Wilson, so that's a good teardrop to make from Russell Wilson to Zach Wilson, and I think you get a pretty good return. And I still think that you could expect a starter. And then the other thing that you can always do, this makes it even easier. This is a way to hack a super flex quarterback trade. Quarterback and call it a running back. It can be a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end. But let's just say, just hypothetically, we're going to say a quarterback and a running back, like an upgraded quarterback. I'm going to send you an upgraded quarterback for a downgraded running back. You're going to send me a downgraded quarterback, an upgraded running back. Like that, to me, that's the move. That's the structure. That's the way to structure a quarterback trade in Superflex. Because again, the quarterback scoring, it's not going to be that different. Like you're going to be in a similar situation, especially, man, with this depth, with, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, and Trey Lance, and then one other quarterback, whoever it is, your quarterback scoring on a weekly basis is going to be just fine regardless of who that is. So the ability to upgrade a running back, to upgrade a Michael Carter, like send, Russell Wilson and Michael Carter for like Zach Wilson and, man, just about any running back not named Jonathan Taylor, you're probably going to be able to make that move. So that's the way to structure that thing for me. So that team that we were looking at of Ryan's with Mark Andrews had a 0.75 tight end premium. So yeah, that makes it a little easier actually to like, he could be the guy. He could be one of the guys that you tear down from as well, because he's going to have a little extra power with that, because that's a heavy premium, man. 0.75, that's a pretty heavy premium. So I think people would pay up for Mark Andrews, and you could probably still get kind of a younger tight end who is still going to take advantage of that premium, just like anyone else. And then probably get a player added on as well. Timothy, people say the 2023 class is stacked and then can only name Bijan. Well, I mean, I can name quarterbacks. I named a wide receiver. What else do you need? I've got notes. I just didn't pull them out. I'm gonna freaking do this actually, just to show that I'm paying attention here. Let's see. At quarterback, we got Young, Stroud, Van Dyke, Hooker, Jerkovich. At running back, we've got Robinson, Gibbs, Bigsby, Evans. Yeah, I don't know. There's some names. I gave you some names. I didn't come completely unprepared. And let's see. That's a conversation between some of you guys. Let's see. Ronnie Rhodes says, back to the 2023 class. Do you think it's going to be better than this past year, 2021? Let's see. Why am I drawing a blank on the running backs? Oh, Najee Harris. Yeah, I think the running backs are better than 2021. Overall, though, I'm going to say no. I think that the running backs are better, and I think that is important. I think that says a lot. The fact that we are 5 deep with like 5-star type of guys, which we didn't really have in 2021. We had Najee Harris. We were supposed to have Travis Etienne, and I still don't know that Etienne would have been better than, more than one or two of the guys at the top end in 2023. And then Javonte Williams, and Javonte ended up being, very talented, but it was also a landing spot, and especially what the landing spot kind of turned into. So, beyond that, it ended up being a fairly weak running back class, at least at the top. 2023 is going to be more top heavy at running back, But beyond that, these quarterbacks should all be good, but I don't know that they're necessarily going to be. I, you know, I don't know that they're going to be better prospects than what we had in 2021. I don't think any of these guys is a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence. So, uh, I know that that's tough to say after the rookie year that Trevor Lawrence had, but I mean, we still have to stick with what we thought. Our priors going into 2021 said that Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, maybe even Peyton Manning. So we don't have that. Bryce Young is going to be good. CJ Stroud is going to be good. They're not the prospect that Trevor Lawrence was. I don't even know that I think that they're kind of more in line with Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Like, that's the type of prospect that we're looking at. So, yeah, there's no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Jamar Chase. There's no Kyle Pitts. I guess we do have to say 2021 was overall a better class. But again, like I said, the fact that the running backs are going to be better, I think is the most important part. BJ Lee asks, in a one quarterback league, do you still like the 2023 class more than the 2022 class? What's the difference for one quarterback leagues and two quarterback leagues? That's a great question. Because once you take the quarterbacks out, what are you left with? I still prefer the 2023 class. It's just barely, because and again, it's the running backs in a one quarterback league. To me, it's driven by running backs. Even after the season we just had, where running backs really didn't do a whole lot for us, other than Jonathan Taylor, this is still a very, it's still a running back driven game, particularly in one quarterback where, the quarterbacks don't have any value. You're really just talking at that point about running backs and wide receivers. There's a million wide receivers. There's a million, not a million, obviously, but there are a ton of ways to find wide receiver scoring. You can do it cheap. You can do it expensive. But, at the end of the day, you don't have to have Jamar Chase. You don't have to have Justin Jefferson. You don't have to have Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill or Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown. Like, there's just a list that goes for about almost 40 players of wide receivers who are going to help you compete as long as you have running backs. If you don't have the running backs, the wide receivers kind of don't matter that much. And we really kind of, in two quarterback and SuperFlex, two totally different games, by the way. People like to call them the same thing. They say, SuperFlex / two quarterback league. It's like, it's one or the other. Those are two very different ideas. But the thing that they do have in common is that the quarterbacks drive everything. It all kind of starts with the quarterback scoring. The running backs don't matter. The wide receivers don't matter. It doesn't matter what you have on your roster if you don't have quarterbacks. Now, again, you don't have to have elite quarterbacks, but you have to have quarterbacks. So that's kind of the big difference. Because you really just take the quarterbacks completely out of the conversation in a one quarterback league. It doesn't matter who you have. You go back to the JJ Zacharyson late round quarterback thing, even in a dynasty league, in a one quarterback league, because it doesn't matter. First of all, they're all going to score the same. They're all going to give you the same 15 to 20 points, 25 points a week. And, kind of regardless of who you're playing against, you've got a chance to score just as much at quarterback as they do. And then the difference, the difference between winning and losing is going to be at the margins in at running back and wide receiver. But also there's going to be quarterbacks available on waivers. You can just stream them, like literally stream them on waivers, not trying to do it in your roster. Just go get whoever you want. Whoever's got a good matchup, he's just sitting on waivers waiting for you. So go get him, plug him in for a week, and then when you're done with them, throw him back and do it again. You can't do that in SuperFlex. You certainly can't do it in two quarterback. So, yeah, the quarterbacks in a one quarterback league, in 2023, with as good as those quarterbacks are going to be, you're probably still not going to see them going until the second round. You're going to see running backs and wide receivers through the entire first round. And, I think that 2022 is deeper. I think that there are more startable type of players in 2022, but I think that they're primarily wide receivers. There's it's Breece Hall is the only running back. Like, you have to have 101 in a one quarterback league. Breece Hall is the only real difference maker in this class in a one quarterback league. You still get something out of Kenneth Walker, probably Isaiah Spiller, handful of others, but it's primarily going to be wide receivers. I still prefer 2023 only because the running backs are going to be deeper. My man Zane is here for SuperFlex SuperFriday. My man Rice Cake Randy is here, and he says 2022 107 or 201 in a 2023 first. Yeah, give me the 2023 first. I'll take a random 2023 first over 107. And then you still get 20. That's the thing here too. Like, even for somebody who disagrees with my views on 2022 versus 2023, you're still getting a very similar player at 201 that you would get at 107. Instead of getting Drake London, now you're getting George Pickens or Jameson Williams. That's a very small difference for the price of a 2023 first. Yeah, to me, that's a slam dunk. I would take the 2023 first by itself, but it just makes it that much easier that you're getting 201. Freak Stomp 49er, by the way, agreed with me. Aaron 1984A is a Tua fan. He's got, let's see, we've got a Rocket. I think we've got a Cheetah for Tyreek Hill. We've got a Crown. And then we've got a yellow ball. Not totally sure what that is. The sun, maybe South Beach. Yeah. Hot and sweaty down there with those guys running around and just outrunning everybody. Stephanie and Caleb ask 10-team SuperFlex tight end premium. I have Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers. Man, that's a doctor, a physical therapist's dream come true. Like, they're seeing that running back group and just seeing dollar bills. Dev Williams and J.K. Dobbins. Would you move any of those for 2023 picks plus players? Just trying to see if there is areas to upgrade. Christian McCaffrey, I would absolutely trade. I mean, a big part of it is right now, I think you can still get a 2023 first plus something. I think that you can get the equivalent of multiple 2023 firsts for Christian McCaffrey. And I think that it's your last opportunity to do that. Like, he's at a cliff. And however we define the cliff, whether it's the age, whether it's the usage, whether it's, the number of years he's been in the league, certainly the number of injuries that are piling up, like this, it's all a cliff. It's all indicators that the Christian McCaffrey that we've known and loved for the last several years, those days are behind us. It's possible. And I mean, first of all, it's very unlikely that he plays a full season, stays healthy for a full season. He hasn't been able to put more than 2 games together in the last 2 years. So, staying healthy for a full 17-game season, very, very unlikely. But even if he gives us that, or at least close to it, and gives us the same type of scoring that we've become accustomed to, I think you're getting that like one more time. That's kind of all that's really left for him. So yeah, just playing probabilities. I'm moving Christian McCaffrey And I think that's probably the only one of those guys that I would move personally. I think the rest of those guys you hang on to. Um, the thing, I mean, Etienne and Dobbins are probably headed for a down season coming off of the ACL injuries. And I think, um, I think that their value is it's not as depressed as it's going to get, but it's already a little too low right now, and it's only going to drop more. So I would just wait it out with those guys until they're bounce back. Like, typically, basically, the timeline that we're looking at for ACL recovery is, there's the year where you tore the ACL, you miss the entire season, get it surgically repaired, rehab it, whatever. And then that following season, when you're back, you're rehabbed, you're, quote unquote healthy, but you're still worried about the knee. You end up compensating for it when you run, and you end up suffering other injuries that go along with it. Lower body, soft tissue injuries. We see it all the time with these running backs. And we're just playing probabilities. I'm not saying that this is what is going to happen. I'm just saying this is what usually happens. So this is a pattern for us to exploit. Plan on those two guys having a down season. Their value is just going to drop even more. And then in 2023, that's when you get the breakouts from both of those guys. And then you move them. Zane Way, my friend, is here. He says, here's one for people that don't know the SuperFlex flywheel. What is your cutoff at quarterback 2 where you consider not using a quarterback in SuperFlex? What level running back, wide receiver would you need to consider using above that level of quarterback? Yeah, which I love this question, and love you even more for teeing this one up for me. Because I mean, basically, like, what it would take is you have to have. All right, so here, before we fill our super flex position, we're gonna fill. Let's say we have 2 starting running back positions. We fill those before super flex, right? Like, you're not taking your best running back. Let's say you've got Jonathan Taylor on your team, and you've got Najee Harris on your team. You're not putting either of those guys at super flex. You're putting them at running back. That's what they are. They're running backs. You're playing them at running back, right? Then you've got 3 flex spots. Let's say you've got, DeAndre Swift and Saquon Barkley and Antonio Gibson. You're still not putting those guys at super flex because, they do more for you. You're better off with a quarterback at super flex and those guys at flex spots. That's where you get the highest floor, and that's certainly where you get the highest ceiling. So that's just kind of the process of filling out that lineup. So we're already at 5 running backs that have to be better than your second best quarterback. And it's the same thing in wide receiver. I mean, you've got to fill the wide receiver spots, then fill the flex spots. And now, after all that, so back to the running back, you put in, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson. Who is the other one that I said? Saquon Barkley, I think. So you've got those 5 guys in your lineup. If you still have another running back who's better than that quarterback too, so let's call it. Let's call it. Why do my mind always just goes blank when I start thinking about specific names? Let's call it Javonte Williams. Whatever. Yeah, let's just say Javonte. You've got Javonte Williams. He's your 6th running back. And you've got your quarterback 2 is Matt Ryan. I mean, the Matt Ryan still has a higher floor, higher weekly floor than Javonte Williams. Like, you're still starting Matt Ryan over Javonte Williams in most cases. You could consider that move, though. That's how deep you have to be a running back in order to consider starting a running back at Superflex. So, like, that's why I love this so much, because, like, Like it's so easy for people to say, oh, you don't like that's the beauty of Superflex. You don't have to start a quarterback at Superflex. Well, no, you don't have to, but if you want to win, you have to. Yes, you do have to. And that's how extreme it is. That's how extreme the difference is. Matt Ryan has a weekly floor of double-digit points pretty easily. Even in bad matchups, he's still going to be right around 10 points every single week. Javonte Williams, there are going to be times where he's got a higher ceiling than Matt Ryan. He's got to have a great matchup. Matt Ryan has to have a bad matchup. And even then, Matt Ryan still has a higher floor. So you're still you can consider making that move, especially if you run into an opponent who's just stacked. They're projected to beat you by 20, 30 points. Then you go with the ceiling play with Javonte Williams. But like that's how off kilter this whole thing is. Comparing a quarterback to a non-quarterback in the battle for your super flex position. It's the discrepancy is so big that like you're considering Javonte Williams versus Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan is probably going to win. That's when it comes time to set that lineup. And I mean, Matt Ryan is that was just kind of like the worst like older quarterback that I could really think of at the time. I mean, at the Marcus Mariota, kind of the same thing. I mean, I think that you start Javonte Williams more often than you start Marcus Mariota. But again, Javonte Williams has to be your running back 6 for that to work. So that's how unlikely it is that it's ever going to make sense for you to start a non-quarterback at Superflex. So, yeah, I freaking love that question. Thanks, Zane. Stephanie and Caleb, 10 team, Superflex, tight end premium. I have DK Metcalf and not sure how to view him. I kind of want to move on. What player and or picks do you think I can downgrade to for similar value? I have CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle. So you're definitely in a position where CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle are kind of your rubber stamp starters. Which puts DK Metcalf. I mean, he's in flex consideration. So I'm assuming that you start 2 wide receivers. So, DK is kind of flex consideration. And a lot of times, if you put him in at flex and then look at your opponent's flex, and let's say he's just your best flex player. Let's say you don't have running back depth. So it's all wide receivers. DK Metcalf is the best one that you've got. You're putting him up against their top flex player. Most of the time you're going to win. So, we're not asking a lot from DK Metcalf in that case. And then, he's also just kind of bye-week replacement for CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle. Ideally, you're getting running backs in at flex anyways. So DK Metcalf isn't even coming off your bench most of the time. So he is expendable. But we're also, you're getting you have such low expectations, such low needs from DK that it's almost not worth it. And especially the fact that you do have to sell him kind of low. If you've got something personal against the guy, then you've got my blessing to trade him away. If he insulted your grandma or something, go for it. But just in terms of if you're just like, man, I think he's going to be stuck with Drew Lock. I think, and he's in for a down season as a result. And I just don't want to be a part of it. I would just hold on for better days. The fact that you don't have to turn him into anything in particular, but to answer your actual question, if you were to do that, if you were going to downgrade, and I should have just pulled up my rankings so long ago. it would have made so much of this so much easier instead of just trying to pull names out of my, you know, um, I could just pull up some actual names here. So I'm gonna do that. Just give me just a second to get some get my Superflex rankings available at dynastyleaguefootball.com, by the way. Recently updated to reflect all of the recent movement in the NFL. So uh, it's gonna make me sign in. Like I just wrote an article that's on your front page. You really need me to prove who I am right now? Um, okay. All right. Let's see where DK's at. Right now, I have him wide receiver 9, kind of in I mean, he's right there with Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. Um, so I mean, I think, one tier down would be guys like DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin. A little bit farther drop, you could look at guys like Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, T. Higgins. Um, Even bigger drop to guys like Hollywood Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Lockett. You probably don't want to go DK Metcalf to Tyler Lockett, I'm assuming. So, and then I mean, Elijah Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, like those are all guys. And it kind of depends on how far do you want to drop. The sweetener on top of that player is going to depend on how far down do you drop. But if you were going to go to like Juju Smith-Schuster is a good one. To me, a little bit of a sleeper. People are kind of down on him right now too, and I'll be honest, I don't totally get it. maybe someone here in the chat has an argument for us being anti Juju Smith-Schuster. Tyreek Hill moving on to Miami. I mean, it doesn't help the Chiefs offense, but Pat Mahomes is still going to throw it, 500, 600 times, and he's going to throw to someone, and it's not just going to be Travis Kelce. He's going to throw to Mecole Hardman the obligatory twice a game. Maybe he'll catch him, maybe he won't. But, they lost Byron Pringle. They lost DeMarcus Robinson. They're probably going to draft some guys. But, man, there's not a whole lot there beyond Juju Smith-Schuster. You would love to have Tyreek Hill there, drawing away the tougher coverage, making things easier for Juju. Honestly, they kind of play two different positions anyways. Tyreek Hill on the perimeter, Juju in the slot. Those are essentially two different positions. They don't even affect each other all that much. Like you have a designated slot corner who's going to follow Juju kind of regardless of who's on the outside, So to me, it again, like you would like to have a Tyreek Hill out there, just kind of, taking away some bracket coverage and stuff, open things up in the middle for Juju. But honestly, it's not going to, it doesn't change his job description all that much, and it doesn't change his outlook all that much. So, yeah, Juju would be a good one to try and downgrade to, I think, if you're up for it. And, I think that you probably get a first-round pick on top, easily get a first-round pick on top, like probably a 2023 first or an earlier 2022 first on top, I think. I mean, if you wanted to make one of those shorter drops that I was talking about, like to, where were we again? Like a Deontay Johnson, obviously you're not going to get as much in return, but I still think you probably get like a second round pick, either year, 2022 or 2023. I think you probably get a second rounder on top. Or possibly like a lotto ticket type of running back, something like that. So, there's reason to do it, but honestly, I'd rather not. I'd rather wait and wait for his value to recover a little bit. Freak Stomp 49er, Tyreek Hill, or the 101. Oh, that's actually a really good one. I've been thinking about doing this. I want to, I keep my rankings updated, but we don't rank rookies until they're on NFL teams. And therefore I also can't rank rookie picks. I kind of want to do that just kind of on my own. And, I'll still publish it at dynastyleaguefootball.com. Again, still a corporate stooge, but yeah, I just want to like pull my rankings off and then add in rookie picks just so we can see kind of where these rookie picks fall. And I just think that 101 is going to be right there with Tyreek Hill, to a point where I think it's roster dependent. I think if you have, yeah, yeah. I was trying to decide, should I back out of this before I go too far with it? But no, I'm going with this. If you have the wide receiver depth to move off of Tyreek Hill, I think I would prefer 101, especially if you have a need at quarterback and or running back. I think Breece Hall, for one thing, I think that it's going to be a good enough landing spot that he's going to stay in that 101 conversation. But in the best case scenario, I think that Breece Hall is going to see a bigger value increase in year one than Tyreek Hill in year one in Miami. Even when he's just fine in Miami, there's kind of not a whole lot of room for Tyreek Hill to move up. Breece Hall has all the room in the world. I mean, he could end up with first round value, first round startup value. So yeah, if you need running back help and you've got a wide receiver surplus, and then kind of the same thing at quarterback. I mean, I'd rather not do this, but you could trade Tyreek for that pick, get Malik Willis, gives you the quarterback depth. I would rather go after a veteran quarterback. I think you can get a better quarterback for Tyreek Hill, or I think you can get a equally good veteran quarterback to Malik Willis for cheaper than Tyreek Hill. But yeah, I think that's the value. I think it's right there. I think it is straight up. G Money asks Gibson for Antonio Gibson for Dalvin Cook. Have the Cook side is 1-for-1 fair, or should I be asking for something on top? No, I think it's fair. I think it's fine. I mean, I always think that you should negotiate it. I think that I think that it's worth trying to get something snuck in there, just because Dalvin Cook seems to be the more established player and therefore has more consensus value. I disagree. I'd rather have Antonio Gibson. So ultimately I would make the move straight up, but just based on, like, if you looked at a trade calculator, I imagine their values are very similar. But Dalvin Cook probably is worth more. And I think you could leverage more out of that trade just for that reason. But if it doesn't go anywhere, I would take it. I'd take Antonio Gibson. Michael Plummer asks thoughts on Javonte Williams and a late 23 second for Jalen Waddle, Juju Smith-Schuster, and a late 23 first, 12-team SuperFlex PPR. So first of all, like, I don't like to project next year's picks where they're going to land yet. Although, I mean, it's fair to just call them late, but like I'd prefer to sell them as earlier picks and buy them as late picks. So like if you're giving up Jalen Waddle, Juju, and then like you call that random 2023 first, you call it an early one. And that bumps up the value on that side. And then on the other side, you say Javonte Williams and then that late 23 second. Like that's kind of the easy way to value future picks and make sure that we're getting like the full value in return. Um, and so based on that, I think that it's the Waddle side. And I hate to say it because I, you know, I don't like having a bunch of wide receiver depth. Just talked up Juju, still love Waddle. And then having that 23 first, you know. The problem is it, yeah, like I don't like having wide receiver depth. I want to add running backs. I want to turn wide receivers into running backs. The problem is I just think you're giving up way too much to give Javonte Williams in that case. You know, I think you say the 23 second for Juju, and then we're talking Waddle in that 23 first for Javonte Williams. And I think it's just it's not horrible, but I think it's a little too much. I would take the Waddle side on that. FF Lefty asks, I have the 105 in a one quarterback home dynasty league. I have 423 firsts already, but want another. When would you try to unload it for a 23 first? And what would you ask for on top? A second coming back to do it. Um, yeah, Yeah, that sounds right. I think, and specifically a 23 second if you can get it. Um, and again, I mean, I would do 23 first straight up for 105 personally. I say that very softly because I know that that's not popular. I know that most people would prefer to to make the pick in 2022 up until you're getting into the late first round. That's when people are going to be willing to trade away a first round pick for a first next year. To me, it's much earlier than that. 105 is in a one quarterback league, especially. I think 105 is beyond that point. I'd probably do it more like for 103. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would do it straight up, but again, market value, consensus value says that you should be able to get more. A second probably sounds about right. But honestly, at that point, what anything that you can get on top of that 23 first just makes it that much more of a win. I think it's already a win. Stephanie and Caleb ask 10 team, Superflex, tight end premium, keep Juju or trade high? And what do you do with Claypool if I already have Deontay Johnson? Yeah, Claypool, like we stopped short of dropping him. So it's kind of like in the NFL where they say, you know, if we don't trade this guy, we're cutting him. It's always super annoying when they do it. You're kind of doing the same thing with Claypool. He just like has so little value on your roster that it's almost just like, man, give me anything. I don't care. Like you still want to get close to his value, which is probably like a mid second. But you know, at the end of the day, the big priority for you is to just get Claypool off your roster. So, you know, shoot for a second. Um, Shoot high. I mean, you know, maybe even start with an early first or a late first. I'm sorry, and then kind of work your way back until somebody bites. You know, just don't stop moving back. Don't stop. Say, you know, 110 for Claypool, and when they say no, go 201, and then just keep going until somebody bites. As far as Juju, I I kind of don't think you're selling high right now is the problem. I don't think you're getting full value for him. I think a lot of people are pretty worried about how that offense is going to look with him as the number one. Um, and either he's going to be playing out of the slot or he's going to be playing out of position, and people don't like either of those either. So, you know, I think uh excuse me. I get to this point same time every week. I've been talking too much. I'm starting to dry out. Okay. Juju. Um, yeah, I don't think that it's quite as bad as people are expecting. And but I think the consensus is just a little too low on him right now. And I think for that reason, it's the wrong time to trade him. Um, let's wait and see how this offense comes together. I think that the sell window is gonna come, well into the season. Right now, I would hang on. Um, I mean, in their league. So I'm finding out. I'm in a podcast league with other DLF podcasters. Peter Howard, uh, Russ Fisher, Cal Shoemake. Um, there's a few others. Shane Manila is also in it, and Shane Manila has Juju. Peter Howard loves Juju, and they both do. So they're like they're trying to negotiate a trade where both of them they both kind of overvalue Juju actually. So like that happens if there's somebody in your league who's just like, oh, like now this is the number one wide receiver for Pat Mahomes. I mean, to the freaking moon for Juju. Uh, yeah, I would try and exploit that, but just knowing kind of what we know about the consensus, it sounds like people are just kind of too low on Juju. I would wait to sell him. Rob A asks, first time Superflex Dynasty, half PPR. Should I be looking to rebuild or compete? Quarterbacks are Herbert, Carr, and Tua. Running backs are Javonte, Etienne, Fournette, Carter, Sanders. Wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jerry Jeudy, Rashad Bateman, Russell Gage, and tight end, Kyle Pitts and Albert O. That's a contender, man. That's a contender to me. Like, I would like to see more depth at quarterback. And I assume that you probably have more running backs. Those are just kind of the big name guys. But like, I mean, the running back group alone makes you a contender. And the fact that you've got quarterbacks makes you a contender. But even better, I mean, you've got the elite guy with Justin Herbert. You've got two guys who are going to be solid quarterback two type guys that you can and again you can play matchups between Carr and Tua. So even if you don't add any depth, you're fine there. The wide receivers, like that's kind of the weakness, but that's the easiest to fix. So, and you could tear down from Tyreek Hill to fix the wide receivers. If you get any kind of breakout from either Jerry Jeudy or Rashad Bateman, much less both of them, I mean, yeah, there's no stopping this team. And it's young too. So yeah, this is not only to me, this is a year one contender and probably a team that is just going to need a little bit of tinkering here and there every offseason to make that just a perennial contender. And he also has pick 105 and 108. Jeez. Like, is anyone else playing in that league? This is yeah, that's a contender, Rob. That's a good team. Yeah, gonna be good. Joe, his first dynasty league was in 1995. It's no longer running. How long did that thing run? Like, I didn't even know dynasty existed back in 1995. I know that fantasy existed because I mean they all love to tell you about how they had to wait till the paper came and look up stats, and it was primarily, I believe it was touchdowns, maybe yards back then. So like I know people were playing fantasy. I didn't know people were playing dynasty back then. It's genius. I'm surprised it didn't catch on sooner. But yeah, kind of surprising to hear that. That's interesting. In 1995, I was probably getting ready to go to an 8th grade dance, I'm guessing. Yeah, it was, uh, yeah, Dynasty football was nowhere near my mind just yet. Ridley Truther says, "Good to see you. How high would you go on getting some Allen Robinson shares?" Good to see you too, man. By the way, 12-team SuperFlex, PPR, tight end premium, hopeful contender in 2022. Um, I think I would probably go. I mean, I would give most first round picks, uh, most 2022 first round picks, that is. I think of the rookies, I would definitely rather have, obviously Breece Hall. In Superflex, I would rather have Malik Willis. There's probably another quarterback or two. And I would rather have Garrett Wilson. I would rather have Treylon Burks. That's probably it. So I think we're looking at like a mid first round pick is kind of the highest. And I'm not super high on Allen Robinson, if I'm being honest. I don't like wide receivers leaving in free agency and going to a new team. Like that's just historically a hard transition for them to make, for whatever reason. So I don't know what the difference is. Like if there's some psychology behind it or what, but for some reason they do just fine if they get traded. But if they go there as a free agent, a lot of times they struggle. Like other than Brandon Cooks, most of them struggle. I don't understand why that is. Like what did it do to your ego that you were released, that you were allowed to walk away by your other team, and now your new team just gave you a crazy amount of money? Like how did that damage your ego so much that it affects your play on the field? I don't know, but it does. For whatever reason that happens. And so, I'm not going to be super high on Allen Robinson for this season, but I mean everyone has a price, and in that offense, without now that Odell Beckham Jr. has not been re-signed, and even if he is, he's probably looking at missing a lot of the season with that ACL injury. Robert Woods is in Tennessee. We're kind of down to Cooper Kupp, and we saw it in the Super Bowl. They need more wide receivers than just Cooper Kupp. That last drive, as magnificent as that was, as great as Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford were together, like it was just so obvious that he needed somebody else that he could trust. Allen Robinson is that guy now. He's that outside guy that, who can kind of take the pressure off of Cooper Kupp and give Matthew Stafford somewhere else to go with the ball. Much needed, very important. It's going to be crucial. The transition year is just going to be a tough one. It usually is. So I think that he's going to be okay in 2022. I think you get a lot more out of him in 2023. So in the meantime, give me him over the rookie wide receivers who are also going to have a tough, first season transitioning from college to pros. And that's everybody outside of those top two, Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson. Mr. Mister says Waller, Freiermuth, and Njoku, tight end premium. Should I be trading Waller or riding into the sunset? What's the value? Yeah, I mean, there's like you could. His value is definitely down from where it's ever been. And but I mean, it's not dead. And I think that it probably, in a lot of people's minds, it helps a lot to have Davante Adams there. I don't necessarily agree. I don't know that there's going to necessarily be any more volume available to anyone. I think Davante Adams just kind of comes in and takes his piece of the pie, and there's not a whole lot left for Renfrow and Waller. That's my guess. So, So I guess, yeah, it probably is a good time to trade him. I don't think you have to. I think Freiermuth is your starter. I think Njoku is startable. So, you're fine just kind of getting whatever you can get out of Waller. If I get this wrong, if that's a high octane offense, all of a sudden with Devontae Adams there, he just kind of lifts all boats. And, Waller's right back to the type of volume that he was getting early last season and then, the season before. Uh, you know, you still have him and it didn't cost you a whole lot. You didn't miss out on much to hang on to him, and now you get, an elite type of tight end in that tight end premium. So, yeah, I think I think it's fine to hang on to him and plan on him being, kind of with Njoku is just kind of a backup. And then, maybe you get surprised. But I mean, if you're getting offers where people actually are still valuing him as one of the top, 5 tight ends, the top 4 or 5 tight ends, whatever, if you're getting that type of value, take it. I just kind of doubt that you are. But like I said, if you are, go for it. Kevin says he says, "What do you think? Someone is offering me Brandon Ayuk for the 107." Man. Yeah. Uh Man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, kinda. I think you're probably getting uh I think you're getting a better wide receiver at 107 than Ayuk, but I think that there's a good chance that you have to wait on that guy for a year. I think that like Chris Olave, Drake London, like those guys are going to be there for you at 107. And to me, those are better wide receivers than Ayuk. It's just they're not going to be as dependable in year one as Ayuk will be. But 2023 on, you win that trade. So I think it kind of depends on where your roster is at. I think if you're pretty set at wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk is really kind of a bench type of guy. I would rather have the upside. I'd rather have the lotto ticket with 107. But if you're starting Brandon Ayuk, you're a contender and he's a starter for you. I don't think I would want to move him for 107. And you just kind of take on a little more risk than you want to as a contender at that point. In a vacuum, I'd say 107. Sometimes I really could just answer those questions nice and neat like that. I don't know why I just talk for 2.5 hours instead when it could be a quick answer like that. I just don't like doing that. I don't know. I like showing my work, talking all the way through it, Trying to see if there's anything in here that I'm supposed to any action items for me here as Zane and Joe are talking to each other. Let's see if one's quarterback 2, 3 are in the Wentz, Ryan Goff tier. That seems like an easy pivot if you have high enough running back wide receivers that aren't already starting. Yeah, I'm coming in mid conversation on that one. So sorry guys. If there is anything I can answer on that, let me know. Let's see. Ridley Truther. I loathe the 3 quarterback rule too. Thankfully was only in one. But 2 of my quarterbacks had buys this year on week 7 by Mageddon. Yeah, that's part of what I hate it. And that's part of why I like quarterback extreme, because it's so easy to go into the draft. Like we do it in redraft and we try and take it to Dynasty where we draft, you draft 2 quarterbacks and you say, or 3 quarterbacks in a SuperFlex league. And this is without the positional limit. You draft your 3 quarterbacks and say, none of them have the same buy this year. In 2021, none of them had the same bye. So I'm good. I'm good with those 3. There's no guarantee that in 2022 they're all going to have different buys again. Every year of the dynasty, you have to you're rolling the same dice and saying, man, I hope that these quarterbacks don't have the same bye week. At some point they will too. At some point that's going to get you. And at some point injuries are also going to come into play and leave you just depleted at quarterback, even if it's just for a week. Quarterback extreme with 5 quarterbacks, you're almost guaranteed that you're never going to run into a situation where you don't have at least 2 quarterbacks available in a week. Kevin says, thanks for being on Fridays. Hell yeah, man. Thanks for coming and hanging out, asking questions on a Friday night. We got a good crowd here. We got a lot of people hanging out on a Friday. So either it's bad weather where you guys are at, or we're all just kind of living that same life where Friday night is not what Friday night used to be. I'm gonna actually remember my Friday night. I'm gonna spend the evening being actually productive, talking about stuff that's interesting instead of taking shots that are on fire. So yeah, anyways, I have the 107 in 2022 draft. Really like the receivers who may be there. I'm a win now team in a SuperFlex. Start 10, 2 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 3 flex was offered Ayuk for 107. Yeah. So yeah, I already got there. But yeah, that one, like I said, in a vacuum, that's 107 for me. If you can afford to give up Ayuk, I would do it. FF Lefty, I support the Javonte hype. SFD, think around 5 is pretty chalky too, so you're safe. Nice. Okay, good. Because I think I'm getting close to there. I don't remember exactly where I have him, but I think we're getting close to running back 5 range. Let me find him real quick just so we can put a number to it. Yeah, this is just so riveting. I've got him a running back 7. So you're telling me I can still move him up a couple spots. I've got him below Nick Chubb and Antonio Gibson. And it sounds like I could get away with putting him back ahead of those guys if I wanted. I'm not sure that I'm ready to do that, but we're getting close. And it sounds like I would have the support. Definitely of FF Lefty, if not the entire fantasy football Twitterverse. Dude loves to talk. Yeah, sure do. Yeah, I mean, the problem is I'm the only one here with a microphone. So if I didn't talk, this would be awfully boring. Reminds me of my grandpa. Don't get him started. Yeah. Yeah. Well, your grandpa sounds awesome with very cool hair. Kyle Senra's here, SuperFlex dude. What's up, man? Yeah, I'm an artist, as FF Lefty says. Just let me cook. Yeah, Freak Stomp 49er says, appreciate the show. Great job. But could you imagine having to work for him? Next job, please. Okay. Anyways, do we have questions? Yeah. Kyle Center says this has to be a Stompy burner account, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Stompy lives here in Colorado now. So he doesn't even have to troll me on YouTube. Like, he doesn't have to wait until for a Friday night to come troll me on YouTube. He doesn't have to, like, I mean, he could, and he would, but he doesn't have to anymore. Like, it's about a hour and a half drive from where he lives. Hour and a half drive to where I live. There's a lot that he could do to to troll me that would actually probably hurt even worse than telling me I talk too much. But he would agree with you, Freak Stomp. What else do we got? Kamara for Stafford in Superflex. Thomas Perdomo asks. That's Stafford pretty easily for me. I'm pretty down on Kamara. I talk about this pretty much every week, so I won't go into it too much because I don't want to talk too much for the Stompy burner or the 49er fan. But yeah, I'm to me, this is a time to get out on Kamara. You might be a little early, probably not, but you might be. But yeah, Stafford is just there's just too much value in Superflex anyways. But then yeah, getting out on Kamara, this is a time to do it. Caleb Duarte, I'm a contender, 10 team league, Superflex, traded DJ Moore, Tyler Boyd for Cam Akers, Robert Woods in a 23 first. Yeah, I like that. I like it. And man, I don't love giving up DJ Moore. That's tough to do. He's still a top 10 wide receiver for me, and I don't even know his quarterback is going to be yet. So it's a tough move, but the fact that you're getting back a starting running back and a first, and I mean, I'll take Woods over Boyd straight up. So yeah, we're talking about Akers in that 23 first for DJ Moore. I think that's an excellent return. Dylan says, I have a quarterback loaded team coming out of a rebuild. Just need running back and wide receiver depth. Have 102, 103, 106, 109, 201 through 205. Damn, that's a lot of picks. A lot of draft capital. What's the best way to leverage the 5 second round picks to improve my squad? Man. So again, kind of need running backs, especially after you make those picks. So, really kind of hoping, since you're already good at quarterback, you're hoping whoever has 101 takes Malik Willis. So 102 is Breece Hall. 103, you might either 103 or 106, probably Kenneth Walker. And then I think you go ahead and take wide receivers. Yeah, I don't love doing it with rookie wide receivers. I mean, you could try and trade a couple of those first round picks for veteran wide receivers. You're probably not going to get quite as much upside, but they're going to help you contend more in 2022. So, yeah, I mean, wide receiver is going to be taken care of in the first round. Hopefully you come out of that with 1 or 2 running backs as well. And then that leaves those 5 picks to really just, kind of need running backs. I think you could probably trade back on a couple of them into the later second round and stockpile even more picks and then go nothing but running back. Like that's going to be the range. And I think there are going to be enough guys in that area, that I think you're going to be able to just load up on running back depth. But I would also, the other thing you could do rather than making the picks is just go through and offer each one for a running back, just straight up, get some guy with a path to playing time. Trying to think of like in the 201 range, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Ramondre Stevenson, Kareem Hunt. I wonder if 201 gets guys like that. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, AJ Dillon. You could target a bunch of guys like that. And again, just as easily, you could probably turn that into more picks later in the second round, which is really going to be running back range. So, yeah, I would turn them all into running backs one way or the other, whether it's trading back in the second round or trading them straight up for veterans. Joe McCarter says, okay, 110 and 310 for Judy, 10 team, half PPR. So the 310 doesn't really move the needle for me at all. calling that 110 for Judy. And I'm gonna take Judy, but man, I don't feel great about it. I do think that the players that are gonna be in that 110 range are they're gonna be they're probably gonna have more upside than Judy. Uh, just not quite as probable of getting there, if that makes sense. I think that the range of outcomes is a little bit tighter for Judy. So yeah, I would take Judy. Plus, he's there. Like whatever is going to happen with him, we're gonna find out pretty early. And if he's going to develop now that he's got a real quarterback, if he's going to develop, it's like you're getting startable weeks for him throughout 2022 immediately. Whereas whatever wide receiver, rookie wide receiver you would take at 110, you're probably not going to feel great starting them in 2022 very often. Yeah, that Tua emoji I was confused about earlier. That was the moon. I thought it was a sun, but either way, yeah. Rocket ship to the moon. I'm sure that's what it was. I still like the idea of the sun because yeah, things are heating up in South Beach, like I said. But yeah, I think you're right, Kyle. Man, how far behind am I on this? Oh my God, look at all these comments I still have. All right, I'm gonna start cranking through these a little bit. I'll if you guys asked a question and you're still hanging out waiting for the answer, man, like I'm almost an hour behind. Holy hell. Okay, let me get caught up. Let me fire through these. I appreciate you guys sticking around. And I'm going to try and give quick answers here, less analysis so we can get caught up. Ryan Janosko says, if I'm looking to move off Davante Adams, while his value is still pretty high, what should I expect back in a good trade? Multiple first round picks, I think. Multiple first round rookie picks. And if it's 2022, I would expect a top 2 or 3 pick. And then another first on top. And the later the picks are in 2022, the more of them I need. But I would say probably 2 first round picks or the player equivalent is what we're looking for Davante Adams. Mike Hamilton says, does Mike Gesicki have any value in the Miami offense now? Yeah, I think he does. I think he's got a unique role. Talked about this earlier. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to me kind of don't. Gesicki kind of works the middle of the field in the seam a little bit, where those guys are going to be more on the perimeter. So yeah, I think they actually draw a lot of attention to the outside and open things up in the middle for Gesicki. To me, he becomes one of the tight end sleepers this year. Michael Henry asks, in a dynasty startup, my team is Dak, Godwin, 101, 102 SuperFlex. SuperFlex, start 2 tight ends, start 15. Man, that's a big lineup. Would you draft the 103, Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, or DJ Moore? Dak, Godwin, 101, 102. I would take Barkley. I don't know why it took me so long to see that. Yeah, I love Saquon Barkley, and the fact that he's falling as far as he has. To me, he's that guy. He's going to be the unfair advantage in 2022. He's going to be the gatekeeper, the qualifier. If you're going to win a championship, you have to have Saquon. Juju's not good enough to beat number 1 cornerbacks. Chiefs only gave him a 1-year incentive-laden contract. They aren't fully in on him. Case against him. Yeah, again, running out of the slot, though. So he's not seeing a lot of number 1 corners. DJ Moore, the 101. Give me DJ. Even. It's pretty even, but I think I'm actually going to go with the 101. I think Breece Hall, especially if you've got wide receivers to spare and or a need at running back, I would much rather have Breece Hall. Unless it just absolutely cripples you at wide receiver and doesn't really help you at running back. That's the only way that I'm taking DJ Moore. I'd rather have 101 in Breece Hall. And then again, if you know, in a super flex league, if you need quarterback help, 101 is worth it. What else do we got? Have the 106 and 101 suggestion. That's Freak Stomp 49er. 106 and 101. Breece Hall for sure. And I think at 106, you could probably look at quarterbacks. You're probably going to end up taking a wide receiver, but I think you could at least look at some of those quarterbacks. There might be a couple of them that land in startable positions. What's their path to starting? I don't know, but there are a few plays. Like if somebody lands in Atlanta behind Mariota, for instance, they shouldn't make that move. And I love Mariota, but if they did do that, if Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell landed there, I think you're going to see those guys, whoever that is, starting at some point this season. Buck says Trey Lance in a 23 first and second for Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb. Man, that's close. I think I'm going to take the running backs. I would rather have the running backs. I think that if it cripples you at quarterback, I think you have to stick with Trey Lance. I would rather make the move to get the running backs, if at all possible. If you've got the quarterback depth to pull that off. Let's see. Juju is not the number one in KC. Kelsey and MVS. Oh, MVS is horrible. But yeah, Kelsey's number one. Juju's kind of number two, I think. We'll see. Let's see. Zane, 14-team Superflex, no tight end premium. Zach Wilson in 111 or Dobbins and Freiermuth. Pretty fair. That's yeah, I would rather have Zach Wilson. That's pretty close. But yeah, quarterback side there. Tyreek Hill, the 1-1. We already did that one. What do you think of Ritter? Sleeper? Yeah, definitely. Not a very good passer. And the big problem is the footwork. It's leading to throwing off platform and making some off-target throws. So pretty deep sleeper. It's pretty unlikely that he lands in a spot where he's going to have a very clear path to a starting job. But just the athleticism alone is going to be pretty tempting. Kind of the way Jalen Hurts was in Philadelphia. It's just and to me, Jalen Hurts is still a better passer than Ritter. But, it was kind of like, how do we keep this off the field? We've got to see what we can do with this, with this type of athleticism, this dynamic type of player at quarterback. Freak Som 49er says, don't draft a quarterback this year, dude. Yeah. If you can avoid it, I think you probably kind of want to. Malik Willis, like I said, he's likely going to start somewhere. It's worth something. And he runs, worth something too. So yeah, but beyond that, man, I just have this fear that these guys are all going to land in spots where they're just very obviously going to be a backup. And there's not going to be much of a path. And when it's going to be like Kyle Trask, a bunch of Kyle Trasks, where it looks like they're on their way to a starting job just as soon as this guy retires. But then when he actually does retire, they go get somebody else, another veteran to take his spot. Never gets there. He's never going to get that starting gig. I feel like that's the story of the 2022 quarterback class. Oh, maybe these aren't all questions at least. I was still way behind, but, yeah, I didn't miss a, uh oh, here we go. 4th and 1 asks, CMC or Breece Hall, not competing, but I could be if I traded for CMC. I think you've got a better shot at competing with Breece Hall. I just Breece Hall's just straight up for me, and, I think that you should be able to get more than Breece Hall or more than 101 for Christian McCaffrey, but I think that you want Breece Hall. At the end of the day, kind of regardless of what it takes to make that deal, give me Breece Hall over McCaffrey. And yeah, I think he helps you compete more than Christian McCaffrey does in year one. Um, Joel A traded Cup and Winston for Hill and the 103. Superflex 12-man thoughts. Cup for Hill, straight across. Winston for 103 is the tough part. And I think that like the value is on your side of it, is on 103. It's just 103 again. You might have a tough time replacing Winston with 103 once these guys have landing spots. But value wise, it's good. Value wise, that's a very good trade. Let's see. Yeah, Freak Stomp 49er thought he meant Taysom Hill, not Tyreek Hill. So that kind of threw things off a little. Hernandez family says Diggs 308, 2023 second, or Adam Thielen, Devontae Parker 104 and 2023 first. Let's see, 2023 first and 104 for Diggs. And I think that's actually probably a little bit of an overpay. I'm still into Diggs. I still think he's going to be good, but I think he's fine. I think he's in for a bounce back, but I still think 104 and a 2023 first should pretty easily get Diggs for you. And that means Thielen and Parker for 308 and a 2023 second. And that's, I don't know. To me, that should be about equal. So, yeah, I'll take the Thielen Parker 104 and 2023 first. I'll take that side, but it's fairly close. Harris Highlights says value for DK Metcalf. Guy wants 2 firsts for him, but no way in hell am I giving that up with Lockett quarterback. LMAO. I like it when people make me say that part. LMAO. Especially if I don't necessarily agree. That makes it that much funnier. Because I don't necessarily agree. But I mean, I don't think Drew Lock is going to be their starting quarterback. I also don't think it's going to be quite as devastating. And man, you're not going to find a bigger Drew Lock hater than me. But I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for DK Metcalf. I really don't. So, to me, 2 firsts should do it, but, I mean, you are kind of taking on some risk by doing that. So, I'm not mad at the decision to pass on DK and just keep those firsts. But I do think that that's the right value, to be honest. Let's see. Keith Grant Fishing says 10-man, 1 quarterback, Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Waddle, Michael Thomas for Kadarius Toney, Cordero Patterson, 3 2023 firsts, a 24 first, and pick 103. Yeah, I'll take the I think I'm going to take all those draft picks. I think I'm going to take 1 2023 first for McCaffrey. I'm going to take 103 for Michael Thomas. And that leaves me with 223 firsts, a 24 first, Kadarius Toney and Cordero Patterson for Jalen Waddle. And that part's probably close, but I'll take it. Yeah. Yeah. One quarterback is a little tougher, but yeah, I still think I'm there. And the big part is moving off of Christian McCaffrey. Coach Chase Gardner is here. Superflex, PPR, tight end premium, 12 teams. My only viable running back is Elijah Mitchell. Would you move 104 and Jerry Jeudy for Joe Mixon? Yeah, I would do that. I don't love it. I think you're kind of mortgaging the future a little, but if that's what it takes to get you back into contention, yeah, I'd do that. Did I just get caught up? I just got caught up. Yeah. Joel says thanks for the input. Hernandez family says thanks for the input. Keep listening into you. Yes. We are caught up. Hell yeah. I didn't think I was ever going to get to the bottom of it. When I saw how many comments there were that I hadn't read yet, and it went back like an hour, I was like, man, this is not even possible. But here we are. We made it. We made it through another SuperFlex Super Friday. I knew there was going to be a lot. That's why we should have just done one last week. I wish that the equipment had cooperated. So we could have done one last week, and we could have cut this thing in half. There was so much going on. We really needed a SuperFlex Super Friday discussion. And instead, it just got built up and just unloaded on this one, this March 21st, 25th. Jeez. It's the 25th already. Yeah, just all got unloaded on this Super Friday night. So, but we got through them all. Always do. Always will. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for the discussion. And thank you for letting me talk. I do a lot of it. I probably could have kept going. But yeah, seems like a good place to wrap it up. So we'll do it again next week. Definitely make sure that you're subscribed to that DLF YouTube channel. There's a lot of cool shows on here. So, obviously SuperFlex Super Friday nights, but we also have several other really cool shows throughout the week. So definitely keep up with them. And they all ask you to join the live chat, ask questions, get involved in the conversation. And so there's a lot of opportunities to talk Dynasty with the guys from dynastyleaguefootball.com. Yeah, Hernandez family says crazy offseason so far, and that is the understatement of the day. It's been a fun one though, and leaves us with plenty to talk about. So we're gonna do it. If not next week, we'll definitely be back the following week for SuperFlex Super Friday, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about in this crazy off season. So thank you all for joining. Stay sexy and super flexy.